All right, so I'm here with Jared Souza today, and he's the godfather of finances. So if you want to learn something about this, about how to run your business, and you want to learn how to actually know as a CEO founder on how to run your finances, how to know what to look for, the key metrics, and all the 57 mistakes that I've made running my business for the last 15 years, you're gonna learn a lot on this podcast. So, Jared, thanks for joining, man. We're gonna have fun.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. And
yeah,
apologize. I'm drinking tea right now because I got a little bit of a cough, so prevent from coughing in the mic.
So, just a little background. Jared and I worked together in my golf business for years. I think we scaled from 4 million when you first came on to 43 million in 2
About
years.
4 years.
4 years.
Yeah, yeah. That was one of the more exciting times in my life. I don't know if you remember this story, but we're going through expenditures, and that's when we first started launching some of the training aids and playables, and it was we were buying through an American kind of rep, and we're like, man, if we go direct to China, we could save half on our cost of goods sold. So Tim was like, get on a plane. And so it was 2 weeks later, a month later, I'm on a plane headed over to China. So yeah, it was fantastic. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Jared, go on a plane. We're not going to do first class. We're going to do economy. The flight's about 29 hours. So get compression socks so you don't have blood clots the whole way there.
Yeah. You did. I was business class though, now I know I'm never flying international without business class ever again.
Oh, dude, yeah, it's a death sentence. That's a death sentence. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so he was a CFO from 4 to 43 million. So we'll go through some of that today too. But now he's running DC Wealth, which is basically, tell him about DC Wealth.
Yeah, so it's D2C Wealth, just the letters D2C, so direct to consumer, because we primarily serve e-commerce clients, and so that's kind of where I'm branding my company. So why we serve e-commerce brands, and actually I picked this a lot from working with you and in your company, is the non-financial metrics that are behind the scenes, all the marketing data actually, it totally affects your financial performance. And so we had that really dialed in at the golf company. And so I've just taken all of that and rolled it into my experience and dashboards that I provide and my strategic advising that I provide to e-commerce owners, into not just, oh, you're not performing financially, but it's well, actually, what's driving that? What do you need to work on? What do you need to fix? And so we kind of go back the chain, and one of the biggest things is we hold ad agencies accountable, right? So if they're telling a e-commerce brand, we're hitting a $50 customer acquisition cost, I'm it's actually 70. So yeah, we help in that regard as well.
Yeah. So, no, that's awesome. And it's so key. Okay.
Did we freeze?
Oh, are you getting, you're kind of fuzzy. I don't know.
Gotcha.
Are you kind of fuzzy? Are you really? Look clear on your side? Yeah, you look fuzzy.
I look clear on my side.
Really?
That's weird.
Okay.
And I'm hardwired into the internet, so I'm not on Wi-Fi. It's strange.
Oh, actual recording is higher quality. The actual recording is higher quality.
Oh, okay.
That's what it's saying right now. Okay. All right, cool. So Jared, just real quick, back to when we worked together, we scaled from 40 to 43 million. What's the one thing that we put in place, looking back, that was the key of our growth from a financial standpoint, or what you saw from a financial standpoint?
What was the key that we put in place? Oh, man.
What financial metric would you say, hey, this is the key that helped us scale once we knew that we had the visibility into this one key metric? Is there one key metric that stands out?
Well, there's a few, but one was the really understanding your customer lifetime value, because we knew what we could spend to acquire customers, and at what point, how aggressive we wanted to get. And so that's what I harp on a lot with e-commerce brands is what is the customer lifetime value? How does that grow through time? And do you truly understand that, which relates to the customer journey? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I've learned too is there's only really two ways to make money in businesses. You can either acquire more customers or make them worth more. And so I think the key is a lot of e-commerce businesses have no clue what their lifetime value is. They're spending money based on the 30-day window, or even the week window, or the day zero window, which is the day they actually buy a product. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. And in fact, when we were we were so confident in the data that we were looking at that we'd go 3 to 4 months until we broke even, right? Like, and that's, we knew how aggressive we could get to scale the company. But most people don't really understand that. And most people, what I see a lot too is when e-commerce brands don't really have the financial acumen or just don't even review their financials, is they don't know what they can spend to acquire a customer. So I've had a lot of ad agencies come to me and they said, well, this client told me I could spend $50 to acquire a customer, yet they're still losing money, right? So it's like, we actually get a lot of referrals from ad agencies because they, you need to have that financial foundation in order to like pull these metrics out that of, what you can spend to acquire customers.
So how do you figure out your lifetime value? Let's just start there. Say that I'm like, hey, I have a web, a digital business, e-commerce or digital. How do I figure out my lifetime value?
So it's pretty easy on certain platforms, but if you're on Shopify, so you're dealing with e-com, there's a cohort analysis. And so every month it's got like, okay, so we're finishing January right now. And then January, you've got so many first-time customers. And then February, it's going to give you percentage of those that came back and purchased, what those customers are worth. And so it's basically like, and that's how I run it from a high level. Sometimes I'll go in deeper and I'll pull it by email address, all first-time customers, the product that they purchase, and then just pull them all back into like every purchase that they've made after that. So you can see not cohort by time, but cohort by product, who's like worth more through time, right? So you can look at customer lifetime value through different lenses of cohorts, depending on the data that you have in front of you.
So, okay, so how do I use that? So like, okay, let's do a hypothetical and say I'm spending, I got $100 gadget, I got $100 widget that I'm spending $25 to acquire that customer, right? So like, what do you look for in your lifetime value to your media spend, your acquisition cost?
Yeah. So again, it goes back to, I always look at and peg the customer acquisition cost. What's the goal that the entrepreneur has for their business, right? So do they want mailbox money? They just kind of want it churning. Do we want to scale this thing and exit it in 3 to 5 years? And so that depends on how aggressive we get in acquiring customers. But so basically kind of what you're talking about, if the average order value first is 100, it's like, how does that grow each and every month through time? So, at month 3, have you already increased that CLV 30%? What does it increase at the end of 12 months? Are you 100%? Are you 200%? Like, I have some clients that their average order value at the start is like 80 and they get to $400 by month 12. And those customers still keep coming back and repurchasing. So it's like, it's insane customer lifetime value, right? But most people, where I start is like, let's just break even the first month until we figure out, is this making sense? We go back, we look at the data, making sure customer lifetime value is growing. So the way that I do that is I don't account for the ad spend yet, but basically I take, say it's $100 product, 20% cost of goods. So we're at $80, right? You got shipping, you've got merchant fees in there, like these variable expenditures to get it. Typically merchant fees are 3%. Shipping's anywhere from 10 to 12. So we'll say that's another, 15%. So, you're at $65 really to kind of somewhere in there to break even. So that's where we'll set the CACs, like $65, break even just to acquire that customer. And then it's our job to actually grow that profitability through time each and every month.
So you're basically saying like you want to forecast out your profit of your customer. So it comes down to, say you're making $50 profit per customer, right? Then it's like, okay, how many customers can you acquire for that amount of money? And what I think happens, and what I see happens is like you immediately cap out on paid media. So if you're on Facebook and Google, that your ad agency will say, oh, I can only acquire 15 customers a day at this profit margin. Well, like that's a ceiling, right? So you're stuck. So what do? You either have to increase your lifetime value, or you have to figure out a way to be more efficient with your ad spend, your ads, and your cost per click, your cost per lead. So what's your suggestion there on how do you actually scale when you hit a ceiling?
Ooh, man, there's a bunch of different ways, but it could be introducing new product. Like I would always go to the increase the customer lifetime value. To me, that's going to be the most profitable play. You can search through different ad channels or try and get SEO going, but that's a longer term game. And again, a lot of entrepreneurs, once they get solidified, or I would say they've got years in the business, is sometimes they're afraid of taking that risk, and you gotta kind of go back to when you first started, you took a risk. And so as CFOs, when I'm advising these people, it's how do I mitigate that risk, right? So do we have enough cash to put aside and try and launch TikTok? We might not get anything back from TikTok, but we want to test that platform, right? Is there different customer demographics there? But what I've seen work is partnerships, affiliates. Like, you've got this email list and you want to monetize that if you don't have other products you can sell, or it's launching new products, right? But you want to be careful. You don't want to kill the goose that's laying the golden egg and just email your list so much that people just start churning. And so you actually have to provide value so that people want to purchase from you.
Yeah, that's a challenge. I think like what I saw a lot in our e-commerce business when we were running big numbers was like you would acquire the customer. So we might have a 45-day break even number, right? So we'd acquire the customer. And like, if you have one product that's generating all those customers, the only way to see really high LTV from that customer is to introduce more products to that customer, because it's a game that you don't have enough products to sell. It's always a game, right? Because if they haven't bought the product in 45 days, they're probably more than likely not going to buy the product in 60, 75, 90 days. So at that point, you got to offer another product, right? And so that's what I think we always saw, like a big burst in LTV when we introduced a new product. But then it's the trap of, okay, now I've got to come with R&D costs to get a product. I've got to get fulfillment, shipping, a sales page, promo video.
Then it's it's cash flow management, right? And you're almost investing in that. It's like, how much do we want to invest for this payoff, right? And how many are we going to sell? So we start running those projections just to look at the risk mitigation. At what point are we going to break even associated with it, launching a new product?
Yeah. So one of the biggest takeaways, I think, and we actually hired the CMO of Guthrie Rinker. I think
that was pretty eye-opening
around then, Jared, but it was like we brought him in. That was very eye-opening. So this is fascinating to me, right? So like we brought him in. We're like, hey, what would you do with our business? Guthrie Rinker, by the way, scaled Proactive. They scaled Meaningful Beauty with Cindy Crawford, and about every other big brand.
All infomercials on TV.
10 years, right? They had all the commercials. Yeah, it was insane. They scaled to $1.5 billion. So this is the biggest takeaway from that, right? So when we had a full day with him, and he was like, okay, we were like, okay, we're going to break even in 45 days. And we okay, our customer acquisition cost is $100, and we think we can acquire the customers and break even in 45 days, essentially, right? And he was like, oh yeah, we broke even in 27 months. So I'm like, okay. So what happens is immediately, like if you have $100, if you say, hey, I can spend $100 to acquire a customer, they would go spend $300 or $400 to acquire a customer. They would get that payback period over 27 months, right? They would get 5 to 6 times the amount of customers. They could scale up the amount of customers through that time. And they could basically scale to 10, 20, $50 million in a product line just because they could afford to pay more per customer, because they knew they'd get the money back, but it was like 17, 25 months down the road.
Yeah.
That was so eye-opening to me.
For them, it was a cash play because they had the cash and the investors that they could have that cash outlay to do that, right? But it is pretty brilliant because the more they didn't start off at 27 months. I'm sure it kept extending the more that they had that data coming in. But it's like, well, when you're at month 13 and then these customers become profitable, now it's like, okay, well, we can kind of keep going and extend that, right? I will say when we talked to him, which that was pretty eye-opening, but he was impressed with all of the data that we were analyzing and making decisions from too. So that was kind of cool to hear that from somebody that was running a $1.5 billion company.
Yeah. Yeah. And my takeaway was from it is the one who can spend the most for a customer always wins. You obviously have to have a product that is really good, right? So the trap I see on my side would be you have a product that's inferior. And so you have a negative churn against you. So if your product's inferior and you know that you're not going to get repeat orders, then you fix your product so that you get compounding returns in your investment, right? So, but if your product stinks and you get negative churn and they don't repeat, don't scale,
Yeah, and
You
I
know,
would
you know,
even
you
I
can't
would even
scale.
peg that
So
as like
that's
if you have nothing else to sell, you have one product and it's just a customer acquisition play, like pull that back and figure out what else you can sell
yeah,
these clients because your ad account gets shut down and your business is done, right? You're basically just
yeah,
kicking the can down the road. So you need to figure out how to increase that customer
yeah.
lifetime value once you sell people on that first product.
Yeah, and make amazing
Yeah.
products where you get referrals off of it, you get
Yeah.
compounding, recurring purchases, and that's the
Yeah.
only way to really run a business, I think, that scales. What Jared is the biggest mistake that you see e-commerce businesses trying to scale when they first come to you? What's the one thing that's like blatantly
Um,
obvious that they have no clue
Man,
what to
just
do?
not doing financial reviews, like not putting an emphasis on it, honestly, which is just crazy. So, uh, one story which
Yeah,
actually turned out to be a great story. It's a company, they're a client of mine, but they came and they did about 8 million in 2022, and we're still on cash basis. So they they sell kind of like in the health and beauty space, a high customer lifetime value, but one month their gross margin might be like 95%, and then the next month they're like 20%, and it just the whole time. And I'm like, how did you guys manage your business? You have no idea how profitable you are. And I think it was just ignorance is bliss, and they just kept pushing forward. They had cash in the bank. Um, so once we kind of got them solidified
yeah,
and got data in
yeah.
front of them, they went from 8 million in 22 to about 25 million in 23. And then we're forecast to do 50 million in 24.
Wow.
So again, in about two
From eight
years. Yeah.
million to 50
Yeah.
million.
But they've created an amazing
But
product. They've got an amazing brand and story. And actually, you'll find this funny. When I first came on board, anytime I start working with somebody, I never want to suggest changes, right? But they were spending a lot on PR, right? And you're like, e-commerce, there's no attribution, like you're just throwing this money out there. But I didn't say
yeah,
anything.
yeah,
But it's been
yeah,
amazing to
yeah,
see like those PR placements in different magazines and podcasts they've been on have created this halo effect that has driven their customer acquisition costs down on media channels and Meta and different areas. So I kind of go back and I'm glad I didn't say anything because that is obviously working for them in terms of their brand
yeah,
strategy. But yeah, so they've got great products, great branding. They have multiple products that they can cross sell customers into in different variations that don't compete with each other. And so within that, they've got
yeah.
a huge customer lifetime value of repeat purchases. It's a consumable product, right? So they've just got people that are coming back and repurchasing. And right now it's just stacking as many first time customers as we can get into their ecosystem.
Yeah. I mean, God, it's so important. It's a consumable product. So if I'm starting an e-commerce business today, I am for sure starting an e-commerce like consumable type of product. I'm starting something that's consumable, a repeatable purchase, because it's just so much easier to get someone in that loves the
Yeah.
product, that wants to keep buying the product versus, oh, I've got to recreate a whole
Right.
new product line
And if you
every
can
single
create that
time, right?
consumable, that's your customer lifetime value, just getting them to keep consuming the product, right? And then you can build your business off of that. You're no longer
Yeah.
kicking the can down the road on just acquiring a customer, now trying to figure out what to sell them. But then you can start introducing more complementary products to that. And that's kind of what they did. Yeah, so it's been amazing to watch. Yeah, for sure. If I was to
Yeah.
get into e-com, I would focus on a consumable product. Yes.
Because that way you don't have to
Yeah.
work so hard to
Yeah.
resell the second, third, fourth, fifth purchase. And that's kind of the trap. Or have a subscription model that you have reoccurring revenue coming on. So we built multiple subscription programs over 100,000 a month. And what we learned was like, hey, like the subscriptions can really have, depends what it is, but it's repeatable revenue coming in, right? That you can actually forecast through time so that every month you don't wake up with zero in the bank or zero
That's
on
right.
the books going, what are we going to do this
That's
month if
right.
we
And
have
if
an
you
ad
start seeing
problem
that
of this
stacking
or
and,
that?
and that monthly recurring revenue covers your fixed cost, you can get more aggressive on that top line, right? Like, you're like, we're
Yeah.
good. We can cover our overhead. We can pay our people.
Yeah.
We can pay rent, right? And obviously, you want to do more than that and put money on the bottom line, but it just gives you more flexibility to get more aggressive.
Yeah. So one of the things too, I think we learned working together was like, you really want a real time. Remember how hard we worked
Yeah.
on building a real time P&L, and like
Yeah.
you almost lost your mind building
Yeah.
that, but but Think about this for a minute, right? If you have an e-commerce business and how do you know if you close your books at the end of the month and you don't get your reporting for another 15, 30 days and you're making decisions
Yep.
real time off of,
Yep.
you have no clue if you're profitable, right? So what I think we learned scaling to 43 million was, you want to know your real time P&L. So, a dollar in today is even if it's a rough P&L, we established a number that said, hey, today we made $2,400 profit based on this ad spend, this much on our email list. And we know every day that we have a pulse of the business on how profitable it is.
All of that, right? We're seeing the revenue coming in each and every day. We're seeing the sales. We're seeing our ad spend going out every day. Like, we can have all of that real time, but it's the other things. It's the payroll, it's the RIS, the utility, right? All of that. So when you're doing the real time, what we did that we're trading speed for accuracy, but we got that accuracy within a threshold that we were comfortable with. And so at the end of the month, we always knew we were within 5 to 10%. So it was never out of the ordinary. If we were projecting, 250,000 say in profitability, whatever it might be, it might hit 230, 220, something like that. But you are trading a little bit of that, but we are willing to do that because we can make better strategic decisions in real time with the way that we had that outlined. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, otherwise, how are you going to make decisions real time? Like if your media buyer says you need to spend more, or we're having like your media starts tanking, do you know you could keep with that spend or that level? And like, are you going to make up the gap with your email list or your promotion for the month, the gap of your profit? So I don't know how you'd operate without a real time pulse of the business. It seems
typically we like right now. So we've got different tiers that we offer clients. And it's so funny that you just brought that up because I just built one of these for one of my clients like 2 days ago. So like they're pulling in all their ad spend and they're starting to scale a little bit. And the founder was like, I just need to know if we're profitable. And so I was like, okay, well, so we built it out. So I might actually roll this out as a product as some other people, but because it's very helpful. It made him feel more solidified in his decision. It made him feel more comfortable because when he's flying blind, he's like, I don't know, should we keep scaling? I don't want to get to the end of this month and be 50,000 in the hole. So this gave him that confidence to kind of keep scaling. But shoot, I lost my train of thought now. Yeah.
That's fine. No, I mean, it's the key. Like you're going to go insane as an owner of the business if like you don't media never stays the same. You have these ebbs and flows of like, oh, we crushed it, we didn't crush it. And so we always kind of had a safety net. It was like, hey, our email list brought in a certain amount of revenue. Our front end media brought it, and we kind of balance it and we kind of know where we're at. But like if something starts tanking, like you need to be able to pull levers real time every day. But how can you pull levers knowing what you don't know if you're profitable for the month if you're spending that kind of media? Because you're never going to scale if you don't figure out how to really scale Facebook and Google. Like if you don't really know your numbers, because the leverage in growing a 9-figure e-commerce business or an online business is you have to scale paid media and you have to know what your numbers are all the time, every day, what's working. Yeah. And it's just a data.
And it's knowing what data to look at and what it means, right? Because there's data everywhere. So, I mean, that's kind of what we do is connect all of that into their financial performance. So kind of going back to that though, that's why most of our clients deal with ad agencies, right? So they don't have an in-house CMO. They're not buying media in-house. And so that's where we come in, where we're like, okay, as long as they hit this threshold at the end of the month, this is where we're going to be at. And so it's up to the ad agency to perform at that point. And then we look at, like you talked about, like returning, is email producing at least 30% of your revenue? Like that's kind of the baseline where we want to be at. So we start looking at all of those benchmarks to really advise them on what they need to focus on. But without the real-time P&L, that's kind of how we do it. We try and close the books as quickly as possible and, get people videos out to advise them by the latest the 10th, but still.
Yeah. Wouldn't you say though, the biggest lever you see with everyone, like I'm just going to assume most people have no cash. I mean, let's be real. Like you have limited cash, right? So the biggest lever that you can pull is getting more, like, how can you get your lifetime value, your customer up so you can afford to go acquire customers and build your email list, because your email list will stack. There were months we were doing almost $1 million a month in email. in email off of our email list. So it's super important to know that the compounding effect of that email list as you
Yep.
acquire customers
Yeah.
grows,
Yeah,
right?
for
I mean, do
sure.
you see that happen a
And
lot?
then, it's interesting when you see people's eyes light up when they actually get, because conceptually you're like customer lifetime value, I get it. But like when you see it on a chart where you're like, you've already paid for these customers, like, right? You've already paid for them. So like, let's
Yeah.
monetize them,
Yeah.
right? Like, let's get them coming back and repurchasing. And when
Yeah.
they kind of flip their thinking in that regard, it's like, kind of the light bulb goes off and it's like, yeah, you're spending money to acquire these customers. Like you've already spent money on them. Like it's just profit. The more you can get them to come back and purchase from you, right? Like you're stacking money on the bottom line. Or like you said,
Yeah.
once you have that, now you can go out and spend more money to acquire customers, depending on what your strategy is, what your vision for the company is. Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing, tell me if I'm right on this assumption that if you see this with a lot of e-commerce online businesses, like they drive customers and products and they literally just send promos to the email list. Like I'm just blasting promos all day long, buy from me, buy from me, buy from me. And there's no value to the customer to keep opening. So you just churning the customers left and right. They're opting out because you're not providing any
Yeah.
value. I mean,
Yeah.
is that right?
I mean, I think a lot of
Yeah.
times people get out of the fact that there's actually a human on the other side of that email and don't put themselves in their shoes. You're just thinking about your product
Yeah.
and how you want them to buy it instead of like, if they were the company, how would you want to be presented with your product? Right. So like consumable products, it's like emails
Yeah.
that should first go out is like, how do you use it? What's the best case? When should you take it? When should you drink it? Whatever it is, right? And what are the effects that you should feel? Day 15, checking in. How's it going so far? Day 30, hey, you should almost be out. You want to right? It's just like this customer journey that you walk people down, because they're just humans on the other end of that email. Yeah.
Yeah. And no, I love that. And it's a one-to-one. So I think everybody thinks, oh, I'm going to broadcast. Let's say you have 20,000 people on your email list and I'm going to broadcast out to this, all these
Right.
people. It's just one person is getting your email.
Yeah.
So treat them as a person. And like one thing I think we did pretty well is that I just lined up Golf Pros to do a ton of content. So it would be like, hey, we have a tip going out or a video going out
Yeah.
that provides a lot of content to the end user. So even if you get your iPhone up and have a mic and you show them demonstrating your product or just providing value, like that
Yeah,
makes
for
them want to
sure.
buy
Because
more
you're
stuff.
giving
I mean, do you
them-
agree with that? I mean,
I would say value. You're
Yeah.
giving them information that they're not having to pay for, right? You're giving them this tip and you're saying, I don't need you to open your wallet right now. Just take this. This should improve your golf game. But yeah, it gives them more confidence, or it opens up
Yeah.
that door the next time you send an email where it is a promo email that they're going to open it and you're trying to get their eyeballs on it, right? It's like every step of progression. It's first like get them to open the email, get them to read the email, get them to click, right? It's like this progression that goes through.
Yeah.
And I would go back and say, whenever I'm advising clients to, right, in Klaviyo, you've got flows versus campaigns. And so flows, I always tell people if I see a drop off in flows to me are almost like the SEO game, right? It takes a little bit to build it up, but it's going to be much more consistent revenue coming in because people are coming in session, like they sign up, you take them through this flow where the campaigns are just that blast out. And so if you can work on the flow structure and keep revising that to really increase that month over month, it's going to be much more consistent revenue that's coming into your business. And so that's always the kind of the advice. Like campaigns are great, especially in November, right? Black Friday, Cyber Monday, the Super Bowl, the campaign revenue drives up. But when you look at those flows, man, they're just so much more consistent through time.
Yeah. And I think too, it's like if you can provide enough about like the trap is every time you email a promo to your list, if you picture it like a piggy bank and you're pulling out goodwill of your piggy bank every time, like if you exhaust that, you're going to wake up with nothing. But one of the ways you can go to bed and sleep at night and know I have a little bit of a buffer is like you have that list that if you need to tap it for a promo that makes $50,000 or 30,000,
yep,
that's fine. So something can go wrong. But like, I think I just see everyone just spamming their list. Like they're just going to go grab money every day from it. And I think if you want to really increase your lifetime value, which is the only way you're ever going to scale, you have to treat your list as a compounding entity, right? So it's like it continuing to grow.
Yep.
But the only way to do that is you provide value to it. So it's like a build, right? Like a 401k, it just keeps growing
and especially,
and growing.
A lot of times we look at, subscriptions, monthly recurring revenue that adds, higher multiples. anytime you go to exit a company too, it's there's always a story that you're telling. And so making a case that of somebody that's generating 20% from their email list compared to like 60%, where what you're saying is you're buying this future revenue that's coming from this email list and can create a higher multiple for your company, right? So the email list is so important. Like it's just vitally important. Yeah. Yeah. And what would you tell people, like, say they don't have their content? Have you ever used like just anybody else's content that's valuable, where like you throw it in an email and but you're still like associating with it, you know? I mean, granted any IP or anything like that.
I mean, do anything, throw the kitchen sink at them to get value to them. If it's written, like write an email that's value to them. If you're selling an e-commerce product, like give them a recipe that could go with it. Anything that's complementary to what they're doing. I'll link YouTube videos. I mean, like literally have somebody have somebody research the top videos around this topic. Just link YouTube videos, and who cares? Like it doesn't matter if they're going off your site. You need to send some emails that just give back to them, right? Instead of taking away. Don't promote your product on every single email. Like one of the things we did so well in our e-commerce was like we would have a video that would have a lot of value, but you can link below it if you want to learn more, do this, but it doesn't come off as a pitch to the user.
It's not just a sales pitch or an infomercial. There's actually like tips in the video. Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah. 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 There's a lot of tips or value. Just like treat them like you treat your grandpa. Like if your grandpa is on the list, like your grandpa doesn't want to get an email every other day.
What the hell am I getting this for again?
You know, here's another coupon. Yeah. President's Day again. Oh, we ran out of stock again. You know, it's like, it's like, I mean, like at some point, like they're going to opt out. And that's why like the lifetime value isn't there. So if you don't have a compounding vehicle that's like building either more email lists, more volume, then you're just in a churn game of spending money and like really thin razor profits. Because if your business isn't a compounding machine, why run the business, right? I mean, like it doesn't need to pay you. So and it's not sellable. So you're kind of in a trap, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
We did this. I mean, we've done this before.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's kind of key. Okay. One last thing. So they can't
I've never been called the
Godfather
but
DC well,
awesome.
DTC well.
I am from Fresno, so you know there's some gangsters.
So how would you hire a CFO that could run, like, first of all, how would you hire a CFO? Then how would you get this dashboard in place to track the e-commerce brand?
Dang, how would I hire? So I think if I was entrepreneur, the CEO of my company, hire a CFO that had experience in the industry that I'm at, right? So like if it's e-com, because there's so much that goes into the e-commerce, all the data that we have access to, right? Being able to decipher that data and advise. You're going to want somebody that's a strategic thinker and a visionary. I think, you know, when I was working alongside you, is I kind of have some entrepreneurial tendencies. And so like, you wouldn't have known this at the time, but me getting on that flight to China, like it just kind of helped fulfill that, because I felt like I was not just the CFO, but I was like, that was supply chain, right? Like there was these other things that, and just cause we all ran hard. And so we all had to pull in different areas, but that kind of fulfilled it for me. And so I think having a strategic thinker, a visionary, and then really one of the biggest pieces is like a cultural fit. Like, are you willing to like lock arms with this person and go to battle? Right? Because it's like, if you don't enjoy working with this person, you're going to be with them a lot and like talking a lot. So those are kind of my three main ones. In terms of like the dashboards we create, we've done a really good job. I'm trying to make those more efficient now, but it's how can we efficiently get the data? How can we sift through the data and trust the data and decipher it, display it in a way that's actually actionable, right? Because if you're just looking at data, it doesn't mean anything. It's like learning and not putting something into action. So you want to know what you're looking at. What does this mean? How can we take action from it to actually improve and move forward? So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like you got to have the data, but I remember saying this a lot. Okay, I got this data. What do I do with this data? And I think learning, like having a CFO that's like looking at, okay, what's the biggest constraint in the business with the data I have? to drive the most profit. Like trying to
Yep.
decipher down what do I do with this and take action on it is critical. So like a strategic CFO, you don't want a CFO that's just going to say, hey, here's the dashboard. You go figure it out.
Yeah.
Like they need to tell you.
Yeah.
They need to tell you.
Yeah. So
what you're
even like on
gonna
our
do,
lowest
right?
tier, what
I mean,
we do is
yeah.
we go through the dashboard, we create a loom, and we're walking through what we're seeing, where they should focus, right? So even one of them, which is just kind of a minor thing, is we pull in conversion rates and historical data because what we look at is like sales are down.
Yeah.
Well, did you have a theme update? Did you change your theme? Did you do something to your site? Like if conversions are down, because you drove the same amount of sessions, if your conversions would have been up, you would have been where we forecasted, right? So there's all these like things that we pull into one place so we can go through all of it all at once to advise them strategically. Yeah.
And it's, that's awesome. And it's key. Like Jared helps them make decisions on their media and their business through financials. He doesn't just like get the P&L and like mail it in an envelope with that little sticky in a
Which
a stamp.
I've got a good story. So
I
one of my clients within the first 2 months, I'm looking at all of their data, right? And they've got great customer lifetime value. And I'm saying, you need to spend more to acquire customers. Like you need to be pushing right now, right? Like they had margin, they were profitable. It's like, we could start going. And the CEO goes, I knew I was right. I felt in my stomach that our company was winning, but the other CFO firm just kept telling us we had to cut expenditures. And it's like, yeah, because they're just looking at this silo of just the financial statements. But like, what makes up that? Like, let's go look at that data, right? To see what drives that performance. So anyways, I love telling that story.
That's great. Yeah. So the takeaway here, if your CFO won't go to China, like do not hire the guy, right? He's like,
yeah, it was so great. I ate a lot of hot pot over there.
Oh my gosh. All right, man. I think, it's a hot pot. There's some, that's a 20,
20
how long is the flight over there?
22 hours, I think, somewhere in there. Yeah.
20.
Yeah. And did I tell you too, the second trip that I went, I didn't have Wi-Fi enabled on my phone. And then I walked out of the airport, and the agent that was supposed to pick me up, like I had no way to get a hold of him. So I'm just standing outside hoping he's going to come amongst a sea of people that do not speak English. And luckily he showed up about 20 minutes.
Yeah. Well, and Jared's like 6'9" too. So those guys are like, those guys.
It's great.
Oh my gosh.
Man.
All right, man. This was awesome, dude. Thank you for doing this. And where can they find out more about
D2C
you?
Wealth. So just the letters
DTC,
right?
Wealth.
DirectToConsumerWealth.com. And we'll have, you can book an intro there. And I just love connecting with people and like vibing. So I always say any call that I get on, you're going to leave with more value than you came, even if we don't work together. And so that's just kind of what drives me and what I love to do.
Yeah.
Yep. So Jared Souza.
And you're on LinkedIn too.
On LinkedIn. Yeah.
Jared Souza.
Oh yeah. So it's JARROD SOUZA. Yeah, that's it. All right, man. Yeah, appreciate you.
Awesome, man. Thank you for doing this. Yeah.